I'm glad to see you all here and to welcome Lakisha Lockhart, who is our playful presenter for today. She comes to us from Richmond, Virginia, where she is a mother of an energetic 21-month-old little boy who's getting bigger by the day. She is a professor in Chicago when she's not being a mother and a spouse in Richmond. And she is also executive secretary of the Religious Education Association, and ALM is a related learning organization with REA. And so we are delighted to be able to collaborate, and especially on such an important topic, play. Take it away, Lakisha.
Thank you, Sarah. See, I love that introduction, just feeding off the energy. Thank you for that. So hello, Stephen, Sarah, Rick, Eileen, Kit, Deborah, Sonia, Rhonda, Helen, Erica. Hello, welcome. I'm Lakisha. It is wonderful to see your faces, to be with you all. And screen, if your face is not on there, no pressure. So it is wonderful to see you. And I have a certain way I like to start. So I know I will give us space to do a little bit more of a get to know you, because I believe that's part of cultivating space. But before I do that, I like to just get us warmed up a little bit. So often, I don't know about you, but during the day I'm teaching, I'm in my head a lot. And I love to remember that I am an embodied individual. And that everything I do can come from the body. It affects my body. It's all part of this process, especially right now during pandemic. I'm sitting all the time. And so I really just like to start with body, just to remind us to bring the body into our space right now, and to try to come and be present in a little more fuller way. So if you'll just join me, I'm just going to do a quick kind of shake up, shake down, deep breathing exercise. Okay, so get comfortable or uncomfortable, whatever you are feeling right now. I invite that and welcome that. So take a deep breath in, let it out, and I want you to try to move your lower body. Now, if you would need to sit in stillness and just bring awareness, that's fine, but I would invite you to move. So I'm talking the feet, the knees, the calves. I don't know why my upper body needs to move when I move my lower body. All right, get those thighs in there, those glutes. If we've been sitting, just wiggle them around maybe a little bit, see how they're feeling. Kindly and gently just take notice to whatever you're feeling. Move to the core, make sure you're including your chest and your back, whatever you may be feeling. I don't know about you, but I tend to hold things in my shoulders and my back a lot. So just giving time and attention to shaking things out that you might need, that you're finding are stuck. I will say, if you are driving, Rhonda, I would not advise this. I want you to be safe, okay? So feel free to not shake around. Continue making sure you get down to your arms, your biceps, your elbows, your forearms, your hands, fingers, palms, all of those things. And don't forget your neck and your head. And try to remember that this includes your eyes, your nose, your mouth, jaw, all of those pieces. And yes, we are recording all of these faces. Okay, and just give me one more big shake it up. Just shake everything up. And then shake it right on down. And one more time, shake it up. And shake it down. Oh, lovely. I am glad you are here. I am glad your body is here. I am glad that we are sharing this space together. So now, I'm not sure who's familiar with who. I am familiar with a couple folks, but I would love to do just a very, very brief, because it's just a little of us. So I really want to do a very brief introduction, just because I really want to cultivate this intimate space right now. So I just want us to give our name, and then I just want to locate where we are right now. So I would love for you to think about whatever you're feeling, however your day's been, whatever's going on in life right now. And I want you to think about an amusement park. What game, ride, or food item would you be right now, based on how you're feeling, right? So based on whatever you're feeling, whatever's going on in life right now, I want you just to take a minute to think about an amusement park and what ride, what food item, or what game you would be right now. And I need to think about this too. Let me see. I think I would probably I'd be a whack-a-mole right now. just, just in light of some things that are just happening in the world, sometimes it feels like I'm just kind of being whacked on. But then there are other moments where I'm choosing to hide because I'm like, I just need a rest. I just need some time away, and I'll come out when I choose to. So it works on a couple different levels. And I also find myself whacking the moles from time to time. So it's working its way around in all kinds of ways. So that's how I'm feeling right now. And I'm Lakisha. My pronouns are she, her, hers. So it's great to be with you. So we'll popcorn. That way people don't feel, let me jump in. So I am going to call on Erica.
I'm Erica, and my pronouns are she and Aya. I was going between two different ones, but I think I'm landing on skee ball because I just keep throwing balls up, trying to get get things done. Sometimes I'm missing the target, but I just keep doing it. The balls keep popping out, the tickets keep coming, and right now I'm enjoying most of it this week. That's a new thing. So, okay, let's see. I will choose Rick. Sorry, Helen.
It's okay. You can use the same one, maybe different reasons.
I'm Rick in Seattle. We have a great Western Seattle or Western Washington Fair here in Seattle, and we're famous for Fisher scones. And so I'm feeling like a Fisher scone lavished with raspberry jelly or jam. Life is good and full and rich. And that's why I picked that today. And I'm going to choose Helen.
Great. Sorry, I was getting into a slightly more comfy chair. I'm Helen Blyer, she, her, hers. And I was going to do skee ball because I'm feeling like I'm on that same sort of like muscle memory thing just today, because I think I'll have been in Zoom meetings for like 10 hours today. But the difference with this one is that I was looking forward to this one. And my memory, Lakisha, just as a sidebar, is the fabulous presentation you did at REA with Callie Keefe Perry, where you had running commentary on the screen on what was going on inside your head as you're proclaiming a different narrative in front of the group. And that I don't remember many presentations from events, but I remember that one. That one moved me in some pretty significant ways. So yeah, so skee ball. The other thing I was feeling a bit like was bumper cars, and I'll just leave that one right there. I will call on Stephen Fetter.
Okay, well, I was playing around with a lot of the same ones, and probably for a lot of the same reasons. So let me go a little off topic here. I'm remembering a wonderful dog show that I saw at a fair once, where the dog trainer would give the dog a command and it would do something totally different. And he had obviously trained this dog to sit when he said jump and to jump when he said sit and all sorts of things. And it was screamingly funny, but he was very obviously frustrated, and it was hilarious. So that's where I am. I'm the dog trainer that sings sit when they jump and jump when they sit. Eileen, over to you.
So I'm feeling a bit today like the Funhouse Mirrors. And I'm kind of on purpose. Like I need a distortion. I need a distortion of sort of what seems to be going on in reality. I need to re-see that from different perspectives. So that's my thought. And I will call on Sonia.
Thank you so much, Eileen. I'm Sonia Williams from Eden Seminary here in St. Louis. And the thing I'm thinking of is cotton candy. Mostly because it's nice. I think I'm a nice person. but it also can be, depending upon how it's spun, it can be fluffy. And so I'm thinking of that COVID-15 that I'm gaining. So let's see.
Okay. So just know you're not alone.
Thank you so much. Would Kit, have you gone?
Hi, I'm Kit Klein-Huntz, Trinity Lutheran Seminary in Columbus, Ohio. I went in a really different direction from all the rest of you. A big part of my work life has been travel. And so I am painfully aware of the fact, not only that I haven't left the state of Ohio in 11 months, but that I've only left the county once in 11 months. And so when you said amusement park, Lakisha, I was thinking, where do I really want to go and where do I really want to be? So, so my mind went to Disney World, and I'm the Moroccan restaurant at Epcot. And I will pick Sarah.
Well, you know, the ride that's sort of like a tilt-a-whirl, but where the floor drops out and you just keep spinning and the floor drops out, and then you slow down and the floor comes back and you settle. I kind of feel parts of each day this week and last week like that I'm just, I'm in there for the ride to get it done so the floor can come back up and I can walk off at the end of the day. and it's mostly in a good way, but that's also one of the earliest memories I have of an other than usual amusement park ride, which was probably at the Geauga County Fair in Geauga County, Ohio. So that's kind of, the tilt-a-whirl, the centrifugal force thing. And I would like to call upon Deborah.
So I'm Deborah. I'm in Atlanta, she, her, hers pronouns. And really the first thing that jumped into my mind when you said amusement park, I thought, well, one thing that came into my mind was, oh my, it's been a long time since I've been to an amusement park. Good grief. But the first ride that really came to my mind was that log ride where you go down the big slope and you hit a big splash at the end. And that's really one that I would love to ride over and over again. And so I was thinking that work is a little bit like that. I climb to the top and then I ride this down, and then sometimes there's a splash at the end, sometimes big, sometimes small, sometimes it's a kerplat, that kind of thing. But that kind of over and over again for that ride makes me smile.
All right, I think we only have one person left. I think we just have Rhonda left. I know you're driving, so I'm not sure if you're able to share.
Yeah, I got this. Rhonda Parker, she, her, hers pronouns. I'm a Duke, and I was thinking about a roller coaster and how, like, once you get on, you're really committed. There's nowhere to go till the ride is finished. Even when it's going like in the click, 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 click up the hill, and you can anticipate like that the rest of the ride, but there's no getting off. That's kind of how life feels right now, is we're just sort of strapped in for the duration.
I feel that. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just strapped in. Thank you so much for that, Rhonda. Thank you all. Hold on, Erica says, I think I forgot to say where I'm from, Austin Seminary in Texas. Oh, good to know. Thank you, Erica. So thank you all for letting yourselves go there just for a minute, even though it's been a long while. And I'm sure that we're like, if we could just have an amusement park, I would go. I would just go to go. Even if I did nothing, I would just go at this point. So I am grateful for you all of just taking the time to think about that. I think it's Eileen, yeah, Boston University. Oh, and Chicago Theological Seminary, but living in Richmond, Virginia. But I think I love these kinds of things to get to know folks. I feel like you learn so much about people without direct answers when you're just like, give me an amusement park, give me something else. And so the religious educator in me for our time together is I'm gonna lead us through playful practices, and then I'll do kind of the meta stuff after of, hey, kind of for me, this is what it does, it teaches, because we're all lifelong learners. We're all also gonna probably go back and use some of these techniques. At least that is my hope, is I want all of this to be a resource to go back to help to enliven spaces and meetings that maybe could have been emails, but all of that, right? Just let it be all of that. So, so for me, this is one of those really good kind of community engaging, like, getting on, everybody's already tired, but giving us something to think about other than being in this meeting. Is usually a really helpful tool. Also, if you happen to work with youth ministry or young people, it's also a really good tool to get to know what's kind of going on with them without just being straightforward and asking. If you're like, how are you doing? More than likely, it's not going to be straightforward. But if you ask them something around, oh, well, what amusement park would you game would you be? Or something like, hey, if you had to equate your feelings to the weather, what would it be? Would it be thunderstorms with a chance of, snow later? Or and you'll be surprised at like how much people will go with that, right? It's one of those really beautiful tools. Also, I also like to sometimes for this one use our senses. So for example, I'll say using taste, touch, describe, what you're feeling. So, one day for me, it was like, I feel like, the taste of kettle corn, which I love, but some of it is burnt and I don't know which one I'm going to eat. Exactly. That face you just made. Yeah, that's the feeling. And so again, it just opens up the space for sharing, emotion, dialoguing, and it's something that can be kind of so simple and yet so playful that it invites conversation, right? That it invites. And that's what a lot of what we're going to do today is talk about how play can be this really wonderful invitation to go deeper, to explore, to get to know each other. And I'm going to do it in my very way because I'm a Freire, bell hooks, Montessori scholar here. And so we're going to do the stuff. And then we'll talk about stuff. So that's going to be very much my kind of thing. And so feel free to yell back at me. Let's talk, let's dialogue. Also do what your body needs. If you have to go to the restroom, you need a snack. I mean, I might look at you because I want your snack, but feel free to do whatever you and your body needs at the moment. Okay. This is the space that we're going to be in. If you can't tell, I am animated. I do talk fast when I get excited. Just let me know when I need to slow down. Okay. So we're going to start with an exercise that I really enjoy doing. So it may have been something that you are familiar with, called Lectio Divina. How many of us know what Lectio Divina is? Great. I'm going to put a slightly different spin on this Lectio Divina because I love to think about the fact that we can take something that we know and are familiar with and just give it a little adjustment to invite something different. So I'm going to share my screen and don't worry, Rhonda, I got you. I'm going to talk us through it. Okay. So all right, so we know that these are kind of the basic principles or that go with Lectio Divina, right? This very monastic kind of practice of Lectio, you read, meditato, you're gonna meditate, you pray, you contemplate. I like to add a little plus at the end because I wanna invite us to do something more creative with that. I wanna invite us to create something. So before I give us the prompt, number one, let's go ahead and get our headspace right because we're about to get creative. Two, you have to go get your play tools. So whether that is paper clips and sticky notes, whether it is colored pencils and paper, whether it is Legos, whether it is yarn, if it is construction paper, whatever you might have nearby to create something, I want you to go grab it. Give us a minute or two to go and to grab. And Rhonda, just know you can be grabbing in your head. All right, everyone's got our play tools, our play instruments. I'd like to say that I have random pipe cleaner and feathers and balloons because of my 21-month-old, but in reality, let's just be honest, it's my bin. It is my bin of play toys that I just keep and I share with him. That's really how this works. Okay, so we're familiar with Lectio Divina. So I'm going to put up a text. right? A scripture, I'm going to use a message version of something. And then I'm going to let us think about it. I'm going to say it out loud about twice, and then I'm going to put on some nice music for you. If you're not a music person, you can mute me. It'll be, nice instrumental music. And then from there, I'll kind of walk you through as you move to meditation, to pray, and then contemplation. And then I want you to create something. I'm a big advocate of feeling like we have been created by a creative creator to create. Say that 5 times fast. Don't do it. And so I like to invite us to remember the creativity that we have. And sometimes it's about just being invited to remember that we have this. And so we are going to create. So with the tools that you have, after you read the prompt, you're going to create whatever speaks to you, whether it's a phrase or a word that's sticking, it's there for a reason. Create whatever comes up. We don't have to be artists to do this. We don't have to be, just do what comes for you. Whether that's a poem, a song, a Lego I mean, it could literally be anything. Allow yourself to be open. Allow yourself to see what comes. Everybody's good on what's about to happen? Okay. All right. I'm going to put up the text, which I believe everyone should probably be familiar with. What did Rhonda say? Sorry to have to switch meeting. This is fun. Okay. Feel free to go back and watch Rhonda when you have a chance. Thanks for joining us. Okay. Okay. So do what is fair and just to your neighbor. Be compassionate and loyal in your love. And don't take yourself too seriously. Take God seriously. Micah 6:8, the Message version. I'm going to read this one more time. Do what is fair and just to your neighbor. Be compassionate and loyal in your love. And don't take yourself too seriously. Take God seriously. Micah 6:8, the Message version. I'm going to put on a little bit of light music as you continue to read this to yourself. And then I will let you know when you can start moving into meditating, let the words speak to you, whatever phrases come, and then we'll enter into prayer, okay? Well, personal prayer, not communal. Lovely. So as we're finishing, feel free to keep working. And at this point, before you share, I'm going to invite us. Let's see, there is 10 of us. How does that divide? I feel like it's such a small number of us. Maybe we just stay in one group. I think that feels about right today. So we're going to share what we have created. So as you can see, mine don't want to quite stay on, my little version here of spectacles in a way. So for me, and I'll invite all of us to share as we're willing, I was really, what really hit me was your neighbor and your love and yourself. And for me, I just felt like it's about perspective, what we see and what we don't see, who we think our neighbors are and who we don't, and who they might really be, and what we allow ourselves to see, and what sometimes might be in our peripheral that we might be missing. And so I created my pipe cleaner glasses that look like Christmas colors. So that was what came up and what spoke for me. Well, this time I'll let you volunteer. So anyone else that wants to jump in, I would love to know what you created in this time.
Well, I'll go. The word loyal really stuck out to me in this passage or this translation, the Message. And what I was kind of contemplating was loyal. What does loyal love look like? And I started writing with you, 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 always. Like it's constant. So, and I have watercolors at the ready. Like it's pretty much. This is great. Love it.
Always. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing. I love that with you. That's gonna consistency. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Anybody else want to share?
I'll share. This is one of my favorite scripture passages. And I don't know if you can see this. Mm-hmm. I picked up, justice and compassion. And then what does that mean? How do we live that out? By loving one another and walking humbly with God. And there are some little figures at the bottom that we're all in this together.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rick.
Mhm.
Anyone else want to share?
I can share. I'll hold this up. I kept being drawn to the not take yourself seriously, but take God seriously. And I had to go back to the way that I know the passage to have it sort of really sink in. And so, but what happened after I jumped back to that version was I thought, this passage is really about right relationship. And so this, these circles, it's the relationship between ourselves, God, and other people. And there's that sweet spot where they intersect. So anyway, that's what I was thinking about.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, Deborah.
Mhm.
Yeah, this version throws people off sometimes. They're like, this isn't the one I know. And
I was thinking about relationships too. I don't have a picture to show you. I'm not that sort of visual person, but I was thinking about a meal. I like to cook, and I'm the primary cook in our family, and I like to have fun with food in all sorts of different ways. But for me, it's more than about taste. It's about the people around the table and connecting each other and providing opportunity to care and hear each other out. Large part of my ministry, the congregation I served too before we closed our buildings, was about food and how much we would get together and have fun together. So I was making meals and then making bowls on the lathe to put the meals in and sharing them around, and those kinds of things were sort of coming to mind for me.
exciting. Was there any particular dish?
No, because it's not about the food, it's about the community. So I'm with Deborah. It's about putting the pieces in place so that the community can be community.
Exciting. This is what happens when you have someone that likes to snack. That is facilitate. No, but thank you for that. I think that's wonderful. I think Sonia's been trying to jump in.
Yeah, thank you. I think I was in a much more jovial, I guess, kind of place. I appreciate hearing it read in different ways. And I was kind of stuck on that word seriously. And so I find myself, I will create a project or write pages, and then, someone comes along and says, well, we're not going to do that anymore. And I'm like, seriously? Like, I've done all this work, right? And then I kept reading through the scripture, and it kind of started to sound like an insurance policy to me. And so I was like, okay, so now how am I going to put all these pieces together? And so I was like, well, how wonderful would it be? Because I love music. I was like, to have a whole opera with just talking about seriously. And so I made my own opera, but I can't sing very well, right? And so I figured that the song will be seriously sung in opera form, with the end note being from Allstate Insurance. And it would be, take God seriously. Right. So it was my creation of.
Yeah, I love that. It's like literally I can hear it. I can. Thank you for that. Hold on to that one. That was good. Thank you. Anyone else want to jump in?
Well, I don't know how to follow up that. That was huge. That was like, I can see it, Sonia. I can see it being performed, right? I went with the idea of all at the beginning, and what fairly and justly or something, and what that showed up as was everybody needs a particular kind of hug. Now, maybe I'm just thinking of a hug because nobody can touch each other these days, right? But at least I don't have anybody in my world that can touch me. And then God seriously in the sky is sort of like up in the sky, and then everybody's getting their own kind of hug there. Anyway, thank you.
I do miss hugs. I do. I like, the kind that are just like, you breathe into. I miss those. Thank you for that. All right. Anyone else want to share?
I'll share.
Sort of similar, that I drew a bunch of hearts I sort of started out like that with like 3 hearts overlapping, connecting, and then I drew smiles, and the hearts had to get bigger to make room for everybody, and they had to stretch out of shape a little bit. So maybe it was a little uncomfortable, but we could, you know, we made room so that things could be fair and just and love and compassionate. But I too was attracted to the seriously, and I wrote laugh. And I think, you know, important, yes, take God seriously, but smile and put that kind of a smile into what we're doing.
Thank you, Sarah. I think Helen wants to jump in.
Yeah, I'm looking at the unexpected 7 or 8 inches of snow we got out my window here. We were supposed to get 1 to 3. And I lived in the South long enough to really start getting the itch right about now to start putting some vegetables in the garden. So, you know, the greens, the radishes, the carrots, things like that. And when I heard the phrase, you hear my dog whining in the background. She usually gets a snack around 3 o'clock, and I've neglected her. So I'm thinking about what Micah lays out are the conditions for the flourishing of all of us. These are the things that we need to do. So I was doing my garden doodle. It's got lots of swirls and whirls and ivy that go in and out of each other with little buds in yellow, because yellow is one of my favorite colors. And yeah, I've been thinking a lot about what the conditions need to be for all of us to be okay. I think that's kind of the primary curriculum we've all got these days, is, you know, not about the subjects that we're teaching, but what it means to be a decent human in an ecosystem of other humans. So
Thank you. Also, I find myself walking with you. It's so comforting. Thank you, thank you. Anyone else want to jump in?
I was going to spare you all my bad sketching, but since you've all been bold, this is a set of balancing scales. I just kept coming back to that, be fair and just, and thinking about what that means. And it's easy to talk about sort of the scales of justice balancing, but when you've got this delicate set of balancing scales, it's more complicated than that. There's not a stable justice. Depending on what's in one of the 2 pans, something else needs to go in the other to balance it out. And so I was thinking about both the delicacy and the artistry that are required for justice.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else want to share? Even if it's, I think everyone might have shared their stuff, but even if any kind of connections you want to point out, anything that was like, oh, this spoke to me during this, or anything about just the exercise itself, anything that is speaking to you, feel free to jump in. I feel like I'm like Helen, like just it's comforting. No? Okay, all right. No worries at all. So again, thank you for going in. I know we all often have our idea what Lectio Divina is and should be. And so this might have been a little bit of a, I think you used the word disruption, Sarah, I really like that. This might have been a slight disruption from what you were used to. And of course, the religious educator in me, that was completely intentional. Right? To take something that is familiar or known and see how even just by adding something that might seem really small, but how it can bring about so much more, right? How even just changing the perspective, changing what you create something, realizing that that means that you're going to have a new perspective you're adding, you're bringing a new dimension into it, what can be created, how that can then lead to something else that you might teach later on, how that can be something where maybe you make a ritual out of it and you invite what everyone created to be on an altar together. And that's how you start creating space together. So it's one of these really beautiful practices that can kind of just be added and you can kind of infuse it. And just remembering that, you know, play doesn't always have to be, jump ropes and races, although I am always for that. But just realizing it's also the intentionality and how we infuse it in the other parts, how we bring the playfulness to spaces, the creativity to spaces, and invite it in. And just knowing that even something like this, you could have a more, if we really wanted to dig into this, like this could easily turn into a conversation around, race or class or, you name it, this could really go into a very deep discussion, right? Like, so it's a really good jumping off point if we want to have that. You could do song lyrics, you can do an image. There could be so many ways that you can do something like this that can be a starting point for a very rich conversation that isn't so pointed as let's talk about race. Hey, let's think about this. Let's create something. Let's talk about what we've created, and then let's see what unfolds. And it's just a much better way to remember that we are embodied people with bodies that need time to get into conversations, that need time to get into what it means to do this tough work together. We need time to build community. We need time to get to know each other. And once we do, and we can see each other as creating things that maybe we're like, oh, we're seeing each other as human. We're gonna care for each other differently. So even if I disagree with you, I'm gonna remember that you created something, and I'm gonna remember, hey, you're a person with a body and a life, not just a talking head. So we can have a conversation in a different way. So play opens that up. So that's a lot of why I really like to kind of start with this, because it feels like something we should know. We know, and then I just kind of turn it from the passage I use message. Most of the time we, as adults, see messages that's the kids. It's for the youngins. But I think the message is quite beautiful. And I love how, again, it disrupts sometimes when I'm constantly working in this other space. I try to look at different versions and I'm like, ooh, that hit me in a different way this time. Why? Let me take some inventory. So yeah, any questions about the practice itself, about how I've used it or anything? Because again, remember, we're doing it, but also learning and doing the back and forth. So any questions or thoughts or ideas? I'm not the only one.
I want to share just a funny story. We're doing worship virtually at Trinity, and one of our students decided that when he was leading worship, he would invite people to do some sketching and doodling as they listened to the readings. But he hadn't really thought through what the appointed readings for that day were. So imagine my reaction when he invites us to doodle along with the text and then starts reading the passage in 1 Corinthians about not joining your members to those of a prostitute. Sometimes walking things through in your head before you unleash everyone's creative energies might not be a bad thing.
Oh yeah. I would agree. The religious educator in me is like, always have your end goal in mind and work backwards, right? Like, this is where I want us to go, hopefully. And if it detours, that's the spirit, but let's have a plan. I'm there for that. I'm also curious if when people doodle, like, do they have a way to, because I know there's also like digital doodling. So like, do you upload it and like show it throughout the service of like what people have been doodling? Because I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, folks were invited to, so basically we create on Zoom and live stream to Facebook, and folks were invited to upload things into the Zoom or into the Facebook comments. Okay. But I honestly didn't go back to look later and see if anybody did.
I'd be interested to know what the doodles were that particular way. No, but I think it's great. I'm glad that it's that combination, because I'm also like, how do we share that, right? Like, and share that creativity. I think that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Any other thoughts before we get ready to move on? Go ahead, Sarah.
Just, matching, it's a good point, matching the kind of play to the materials at hand. So there could have been something else with that, but not necessarily, so. But that's part of the whole intentionality. Play is good, but play is often, we use it for a purpose, whether it's physical education or in a spiritual formation retreat.
Exactly. It has a purpose. It has a thing, and it requires work to make sure we do it. Everything has to be pre-planned. I can't just let's do this and just. every now and then, because I've been doing some of this long enough, I can kind of get a feel. But for the most part, it's very difficult to just show up and say, let's do a thing. And then it turns out with what you had in mind, right? Like just because it's play doesn't mean it's any less that it requires. It doesn't mean it's any less work. It's sometimes, for me, it's a little bit more because I need to think about bodies. I have to think about space, right? You got to think about all the different dynamics of how to invite the space of play, right? How do we start with bodies? How do we get warmed up to get to get deeper? All of those things really, really matter.
And who's in the room, and to invite them to adapt to whatever the play is.
Exactly.
From a able standpoint, different bodies.
Absolutely. And even now during the pandemic, the biggest thing now is also realizing that I need to make space for not realizing what home life is like. And so realizing that I need to make space for people to be off screen. I need to make space for, if everyone doesn't, just what participation looks like even, right? And so it's one of those things that you have to take a lot of pieces into consideration when you're trying to cultivate that kind of space. But absolutely. Any other thoughts before we move into kind of so what's going to happen next is like a little bit of the meat, right? I'm going to give you a little bit of the people, the theory, that kind of stuff, and then we'll do another play. All right, we're good. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. And this part I will, feel free to stop me if I go too fast. It's just that I like to get us to the next part because I like to play. And because I know this material a lot, I tend to go through it, but feel free to stop me if you need me to hit on something a little harder, or if you need me to talk through something a little bit more. So here we go. Okay, so, so we remember that. Oh, also this is Prezi, if you're not familiar. It's just kind of like a live PowerPoint kind of. I really like it. Sometimes people have an issue with like the back and forth. So if you go slow enough, it's okay, but just keeping in mind your audience, if this is something you're interested in, it requires a lot of backwards design because you kind of need to know where you're going in order to fill in as you go along. But they have a free version of it. So if it's something that you're interested in, I really like it. It lets you kind of move in and out, as you'll see as I do some more. So for me, when I'm thinking about kind of a theology or spirituality of play, of course, it's about this exploration of the divine for me, and about kind of, for me, it's also that soul work of who am I, what is my purpose, my journey, how am I thinking about this, right? And realizing it involves for me kind of the theopoetic, right? It involves theological aesthetics, like the experiences, the things that are kind of other than, if I can listen to a song and it moves me, I can have an amazing conversation with a friend and I feel so full that I can't even express it in words. It's like that kind of experience. And so when I'm thinking about play, I'm putting it in terms of like, it's like a theology, a spirituality, an intentionality. It's a feeling, it's an embodied way of knowing and being. It's kind of, hard to put it in a box because it's play. And so it would be this kind of image for me, right? Of this hands of moving, of the fluidity of flow. And so that would be a part of it. And so for me, kind of my version of play, how I see it, is very much influenced by Johann Hunzinger, that talks about cultural play, and how it is very important to know that when you're playing, thinking about culture, how different people play, how they have their being, what they do is going to be different. So when we're playing in spaces, we have to consider who's in the room, right? Culture and space, and expression and communication. And I like that because it also, of course, makes you think about kind of the colonization of so much of our bodies and our language and our play. And so what that means culturally to make space to decenter and to decolonize what that might mean. And so that involves a little bit of work, right, to do some of that. And then I like some of what D.W. Winnicott and Jerome Berryman say about play bringing out the true self, how it does a lot of this work of letting us kind of put our guard down in such a way that we're letting our true self come out, because we're playing, when you're playing a game, I don't know about you, but if I'm playing spades or something like that, I'm like, I'm not thinking about what I look like. I'm like, I just want to be in the moment and be there. And that's kind of what they're getting at, is that you're able to be who you are, not what people perceive you to be or the stuff they're putting on top of you, but you can just play and just be, and it brings that out and allows you to see other people for who they are. And I really like that notion. And I'm very, very influenced by Courtney Goto's notion of play, about finding and losing self, acting and believing as if, and then a world of possibilities, especially when I'm thinking about minoritized communities, which are a lot of the communities that I work in, whether it's, Black and brown young people or bodies, or queer folk. And so it's the space of realizing that not everybody has been able to dream and imagine. everyone hasn't had that privilege, right? Some folks are like, I've just been trying to survive, let alone imagine or see a world of possibilities in a different way. I'm literally just trying to make it today and tomorrow. And so I'm just thinking about how play offers up that space to dream, to imagine, and how what a gift that can be to some communities that haven't had that. You know, I think about moments when I was a little girl, and had I not had those moments where I could play freely, I wonder where I would be. I probably wouldn't be having these conversations, because I don't know if I would be viewing play in the same way, but I had those spaces of play, and many people didn't. But it's really powerful to have space to imagine, to think as if that is actually quite powerful, and all communities do not have that. It is such a gift that I believe play can give us. I also believe that play is really important. And so I'm also a little bit of in the neuroscience a little bit. And so for me, I think it's also really moving, because it's the mind, body, soul connection for me, right? It's yes, we can do a lot with our mind, but if we're not remembering our bodies that are part of the process, I feel like we're missing that link. And so it's once they're connected and they come together that we can do a lot of the work. When our bodies move, our brain synapses move and create new neural pathways, right? So whenever we been writing something and we're stuck and it's like, I don't know, you get up, you move. Well, if you're me, you get up and you dance, you shuffle around, or whatever you do, you come back and now you see it in a new way. That's exactly what that is. It's the body, it's movement. It helps your brain move, it helps everything move, it's connected. So we can't really do one without the other, which is why I always love to start with body, because I want to get us thinking about the fullness, the connection, the holisticness of who we are, and what that brings into every space that we enter. It makes us better problem solvers. A Brigham Young study talked about those who play are actually 20% more productive, because you're able to get renewed in the play. So you go, you play, you come back, and now you're actually more productive because you're more renewed. You've taken time to kind of digest, play, and come back in a different space instead of just continuing with the same monotony of what's in front of you. So you actually are a little bit more productive in many spaces. And again, feel free to stop me, because I'm just going to keep on rolling until we can play again. So this would be my particular definition. Again, many people will have different ones. This is from my experience and my research, is that I see play as this embodied aesthetic experience. That is the cultural expression. It's who we are. It's the way that we make meaning in the world. I read a lot about epistemologies and body knowledge. And I think play is another way that we come to know. I understood that for me as a little Black girl, it meant something that I wanted to play the doctor and not the nurse when I was, playing school. Like, those are ways I made meaning in the world. Those are ways that I began to find out my place in the world and what people thought of me, and how I came to know how I had my being, how I understood God was through dance and play. And for me, it was very powerful. And I believe that can be that way for many others. And so that's part of where I come from with play, is that it's broad, and yet it has so much meaning that is attached to it. And that's why I give so much space to it. A lot of that just stems from my very womanist background. So, I'm not going to get into it, but if you're not familiar with womanism, feel free to go look at Alice Walker, Dolores Williams, Katie G. Cannon, Geneva Cannon, Stacey Floyd Thomas, any of those folks. It's really just talking kind of more about just the history of Black women's experience, but how we're all about the flourishing of all people, right? And so for me, play is just that. We're about the survival and wholeness of everyone. So how do we bring everyone into play together? We have to start seeing each other and playing. And so I really like that, of starting inward and working outward to create justice in the world. And so being bold and audacious and unapologetic is really, really important to me. So that's where a lot of that stems from for me. And so my particular theological framework with it would be, of course, scripture, the ontology piece, epistemology, body, and then environment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the scripture and then environment, and then we'll play again. So I love scripture because, and I gave you a little bit with the Message version, but I find the scripture to be hilarious. There are literally moments where I cackle when I am reading scripture, and I love it. So I listed a couple here. There are so many, but these are the ones that I like. No matter what I will, even thinking about it right now, I'm just trying not to cackle. But Genesis, very creation. Again, we are created by a creative creator to create. God created a clownfish, a clownfish. Just spider monkey. Just the very creation was playful. How it all it's just playful. And I just think that that's so beautiful. And I love to keep that kind of energy, and like that's how we were created, with this great, playful creativity. And so why wouldn't we also have that? And then also now we got talking donkeys. Now we got, Balaam and talking donkeys, and that donkey was super sassy. Okay, like I told you, Balaam, to not get in the way. I told you what was going down. And I mean, this was a very sassy talking donkey. That is hilarious to me. I don't know many places in the Bible where you have talking donkeys, right? So that was playful for me. The fact that Jesus was fishing like every other day was also, I think, a very playful act. The catch, release, the bring it back in, sometimes I might just need some silence to go out and be with my boys. And I mean, I really just think in this way, and I think it is very, very playful. And one in particular is when, like, Jesus died, came back, and they don't know Jesus is there, and he goes out there fishing, and they haven't caught anything, and Jesus knows they haven't caught anything, but Jesus comes up and is like, "So you caught anything?" And in my mind, I'm just like, Jesus, they didn't catch it. They haven't caught anything in like days. This. And I was like, Jesus just is so sarcastic. And so I just think it's just that the beauty of that. And like this other part where the tax collectors are like, "Oh, we need your taxes." And Jesus is like, "Sure, I'll just go get it out of the mouth of the fish." I'm going to tell that to my bill collector. Sorry, I'm not going to try to cackle, but it's just moments like that for me that are so powerful and palpable that I'm like, how do we not infuse this in all of life? How do we not bring this to our sermons? How do we not bring this to our Bible studies? How do we not bring this to our ministries? How do we not bring this to how we teach, how we parent, how we live, how we love? How do we not bring this kind of sense of play and care and just being into this space? I think it's so, so important. And so that's really where a lot of my personal framework for what I do, how I put things together comes from. And one of the most important pieces that I've saved for last is environment. So again, as we talked about, this is hard. This is actually hard work. Thinking about play and creating space for play is actually really hard work. And a lot of it is because it's about creating the right kind of environment, right? To be able to play in. You have to make sure people feel okay to play. I mean, to be vulnerable, to do the work. It requires work, and it requires work on whoever's creating the space, right? And so, Moat Mama call it kind of a counter environment. A lot of people use the word safe. I do not use the word safe. I once had this amazing, brilliant Black boy look me in my face when I said safe many, many years ago and say, "Miss Keisha, safe space is bullshit. I am never safe. I'm a Black boy in this world. And, there's some people that actually want to hurt me. And you telling me that I'm safe when I'm actually not safe, that's not cool. Like, don't tell me something you can't deliver." Fair enough, young sir. Fair enough. Never use that word again. And I mean, but what he said has so much truth. I cannot guarantee safety, nor should I. And if everyone can't be guaranteed safe, then no one should. We should all do the hard work of wrestling, of being present together. And how sometimes if we are safe, is that a place of privilege that we need to name, to be able to say that we can be safe and realize that there are communities that will never be able to ever even use that word, not even in their own homes, right? So what does it mean to actually give space that we can actually provide, right? What does it mean to actually be honest about what's actually going to happen in the space? And for me, when I do play, whether it's in the classroom or consultations, I'm like, I'm not going to guarantee your safety because I don't believe in that anymore. But what I can say is, let's be brave together, right? Like some people say, brave space. Let's be audacious, to be vulnerable, to share, to learn from each other, to try new things, to dare to play and be creative in spaces that maybe we haven't been in years, but to just offer some of that in that space, right? But also for me, it's about also still having the accountability piece. That way we can still call each other in and out when it gets messy, because it will. Because if we're creating that space, and we're going to be brave enough to say, "Hey, it really wasn't okay that you touched my hair, but let's talk about why." Right? Like, what does that mean that we can actually get to that place? And so for me, because I'm the womanist in me, I like to use the term clearing space. That's a very Toni Morrison term from Beloved. Because in her clearing space, you danced, you ate, you did all the cool, and so that's like the space I want, right? And so that's kind of the space that I really enjoy creating. But also remembering that in this environment, again, cultural expressions will be different, making space. Also, especially during the pandemic right now, remembering home life. We just hit on that a little bit ago. Also, listening to what people need, adjusting, letting people co-create and name the space for themselves, is actually really, really powerful. And then last but not least, especially, this has been really big right now for me during the pandemic, listening for signs of mental health and concerns. This particular book, Making Space for the Well by Jessica Young Brown, it was like it's really, really short, but it gave some really practical things to consider to like kind of listen out for someone who's not necessarily a psychologist, right? Like I need to know what I need to be listening for and hearing to know I need to refer, right? Like I know that that's not my gift and I don't want to hurt anybody anymore. So like then I need to, so let me refer you to, you know, what I hear. So environment creation is really important. And I see some things in the chat and I want to make sure to see if it's a question. Oh, thoughts on courageous space. Yeah, I'm thinking about Carrie Newcomer's song about naming the animals, crashing rhinoceroses. Always makes me smile, yes. But yeah, courageous space, absolutely. I think it's important that whatever you want that space to be, I don't think it has to say it has to be this name or that name. I really think it's been powerful, at least in my recent experiences, of letting folks name the space for themselves, like creating kind of their own covenant together or their own stuff together. And like, say, I want the space to be this, this, and this. Okay, cool. That's exactly what this space can be, because it lets them take ownership, right? And they're creating it. And usually what happens is like, we'll play, we'll do something. And I'm like, well, what feeling comes that you want to keep, right? Like what just happened that you want to make sure keeps happening, right? So sometimes that helps people find words too, is that, you know, what part of that did you just like? What part didn't you like? So how do we keep the stuff that you didn't like? Or maybe you didn't like it, but there's a reason why, and we need to continue to wrestle. Like what is, and so you get a chance to have that conversation to discuss that. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Take a deep breath. That was a lot. Thoughts, questions before we play again.
Well, I really appreciate the allowing us to encourage folks to name the space. So I've done that. So I've created like an online portion where students can come in and talk, and we'll wrestle with things in the written sphere. And in there, I had them to create their own space. So you put the rules in here, right? Because you know, a lot of people put the moderators. You know, you can't put this, and only on Thursday, and no picture. You know, whatever. So I had them to create their rules, but in a in-person, on-screen verbal space, I can see where that would also bring out that vulnerability of creating possibility. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, especially because we're going in person, like online, doing some pre-work to help cultivate relationship. I use something called Flipgrid to do like class introductions, which is really, really helpful tool. Basically, they can go and upload a video, and then you can respond to people via video or type. And so I think it just gives you just an initial introduction. So that way, when you do meet as a bigger group, you've kind of already gotten a little bit, you know, more comfortable with folks. So that's been helpful. There's also a thing called gather.town, which is kind of like a Sims kind of animated living style kind of situation where you can kind of walk up to people or not. And you can also just kind of do like an open space where walk up to a classmate, see if they want to talk or see something. So just realizing this, there are other ways to kind of try to form that community. So that way, when they do come together, it doesn't feel as vulnerable, if that makes sense. It just feels a little more warm, I guess. I don't know if that's the word.
Can you give me those names again?
Sure. It's Flipgrid. Here, I could put it in the chat. That might actually be better. Let's see. Flipgrid.com and then gather.town. I'm not sure if anyone else has experience with either of those. I see Erica shaking her head. You want to jump in or say anything else to those, Erica?
Well, I've just used GatherTown a couple of times through a training that I'm in. I haven't actually run it. It's very 80s feeling, like all the little the little pixelated emojis. It's kind of like, especially for my generation, it feels very nostalgic. But it is kind of interesting because it's like you move your little people around, and you, depending on where you are next to a little someone else, that their video comes up, but not everyone else's video. So you can go off and have little private chats at tables, or you can see a presentation or be in a big group. It's really interesting. It's a new way of engaging. I like it.
No, that's really cool. Thank you. I'm trying to think. There's also an app called Discord, which I mean, especially if you're working with well, I don't want to say just younger, but I mean, this course is actually required in some of the classes now for some young folks, because it's like, it's games, it's different things, but it's ways to do, communicate and do things with folks. But I know a lot of adults that have also found it really helpful, like to start with gameplay, to start with, letting them do, these kind of games online, and then it translate into community building in person. So I just think we just have to get creative with what that looks like in different spaces. But thank you for that. I appreciate that, Sonia. Thank you for that, Erica, as well. Appreciate it.
Well, I think using music, having people, pick a part of a song that relates to X and share that clip or share the lyrics and ask who's in the room why they think you chose it or something like that. It can be really a nice inclusive thing for different generations in the same space, and personal, and it can be courageous and brave to do that. So it's a favorite.
I really like that one too. I've done it in both ways. I've done it in ways where I let them do it like in a session, knowing that it's going to be kind of a longer session, letting them explore. I've also done it where I've asked them to submit songs ahead of time on like a Google Doc, and then I actually made a playlist. And then when we came, a song played, and then we listened, and then the person talked about it. So they didn't even know whose song it was. So it's one of those things that it can work in multiple ways, but I agree with you. Music can be very, very powerful. And we can learn a lot, and you'd be surprised how.
For incident alert.
That's my random, that's my spouse's phone. He's in IT, so apparently there's an incident that just, sorry. So there's many ways that you can do it, but I agree, music is really important. You can also do that with images, right? You can do that with words. You can have them like, hey, what are 6 words, like a 6-word memoir that you would want this to be or be like, right? And then having words, and then you can like put it in a little descrambler and then rearrange words, see how many words were said. You do a word cloud, all of those kinds of things are really, really inviting and helpful in dialogue. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Sarah. Anything else before I give us more? Oh gosh, our time. Oh, okay. Okay, so this one will be really quick because I'm just gonna like walk us through it. We're gonna do it really quick, and then I'll talk about it, and then we'll move on. How many of us have heard of red light, green light? Red light, green light? Yeah, no? Okay, great. So essentially, it's like a stop sign. When you have a red light, you stop. When you have a green light, you go. When you have a yellow light, you go slow, or whatever your slow looks like, right? So yeah, so I want you to, again, you don't have, if you want to stand and go all out, do you, that's, gauge your feelings right now, but I want to invite you to either find a movement that you can kind of do to go slow, find a, something that you can equate to movement as far as going red light, yellow light, green light. So just find something. It can even be, like a pin. You can do something like this, whatever it is, just find something that feels like it can help you simulate that right now. Okay. So I'm going to do it a couple times, and then I'm going to throw some things in there with some play. Okay. So green light, red light, yellow light, green light, red light. Okay. So everyone's got it. Good. We're ready. We're going to do it again. I'm going to throw in a couple things, and then we'll talk about it after. Okay. And green light. So where are the spaces in your life right now that you're at a green light? How does it feel to be at this green light? Yellow light. Are there places where maybe you need to slow down? Where might you need to slow down? Green light. Does it ever just feel like you're going? Where are you going to, and to what end? Red light. Now, if you're at a red, how did you get there? Did you put yourself in a red? Did someone else put you in a red? And how do you begin to go again? Green light. Ooh, was it hard to go back from the green and the red? And red light. Okay. So I wanted to just give us a little taste. Normally I would, we can put it all down. Thank you. So normally it would be elongated. It would be a little bit long. I'd have some more intentional questions that I put with it. But any initial thoughts about what came up for you, even just in that little bit of time? Because I saw a wow. What came up? You don't have to say it. This is just for anybody. If something kind of came up, or at least if you can kind of see where it was going, had we had maybe a little more time in that. Any thoughts? You're not going to expound on your wow, Kit?
I just loved your questions. I so didn't see that coming, but to think about, this silly little game in light of, my life and work right now and agency was just, it's amazing how much depth of meaning there was in like 45 seconds.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, the question that hit me was, is it hard to get going after you've been stopped? That one made me go shake my head a bit. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Well, and I thought about using that kind of embodied exercise and similar questions, but again, if dealing with a deep topic, racism, trauma, violence, just sprinkling that kind of thing in to be playful. But I just thought all kinds of things.
And that's the beauty. Again, it's something that's so simple, right? Because you can do it online here, just finding a way to move your body. You can do it in person and go all out. But it's just one of those things. It's that mind-body connection that you start thinking about it differently once you connect the body. And it's so powerful that we don't even realize it. Like, I remember someone was doing it. They didn't even see it. Next thing you know, they turn around, they're like in tears. And I'm like, I wasn't trying to, but you don't see it coming. And it's that mind-body connection. It's like, this thing, but as soon as a question comes, you're like, it's like, yeah, that is what it feels like. That it feels like this. How do I stop? How do I? And so it's that kind of rhythm. And so again, that's kind of what play and movement bring to something. And again, something so small, you throw in a question, put some intentionality behind it, some reflection. And again, you can give it a topic, right? I'm just choosing this one because I did a workshop recently with some young folks, and I'm like helping them talk about discernment, like where you are in life and things like that. That's really powerful for that, because you're thinking about places in life. Or I've done it at I'm actually about to. I'm going to do it at one of our board meetings with CTS, because as an institution, we're moving and shifting. Well, as an institution, where are we stopped? Where are we at a red light? Why are we there? How did we get there? Let's talk about it. Let's wrestle. And then give us space. Like that's the kind of stuff that just even that little bit changes perspective. And it can be really, really powerful. And again, it doesn't have to be this elaborate play. It can be these little moments that are sprinkled in. But I'm also all about the elaborate play as well. Let's go outside and hula hoop, because it's amazing. Okay, so I'm going to give us some more resources, because I'm always all about resources. So this will be quick because we're running out of time. So I'm going to share my screen and then go quickly. And then at the end, I will be like, hey, whatever questions or thoughts. Okay, so I just want to give us a couple more resources. So we did red light, green light. So here are just a couple more practices that I've used, some that do body check-ins, gathering and connecting, and then digging deeper. So other body things, of course, body scans, shake up, shake down, guided meditations, using the senses to describe feelings, using the weather, as I mentioned, breath, prayer, and you'd be surprised what a good dance break will do. Put on their playlist, one of their songs, you'd be surprised what a good dance break will do. Gathering and connecting, again, these are not by any means all, I'm just letting you know some that I've done that I've worked with. Coffee, tea, specialty kind of drink, house type cafe things, more of like the unstructured time is actually really helpful, and you'd be surprised at what emerges. Again, things like Discord app, Words with Friends, FaceTime, charades, Pictionary. I mean, even online, they're still equally funny because people can or cannot sing or dance equally online or together in person. So like dance battle, karaoke. Right now, movie watches, Netflix will allow you to do like sharing, to a party, like video watching, movie parties. I forget the exact name. I don't know why it's not coming to me. It's not important right now. Video watching, movie watching parties, doing themed kind of meals or parties together is really important. Like, you do a brunch or pizza, whatever it is, starting a kind of show or podcast, YouTube, Facebook, that's really important right now, depending on what your group or your community contact wants to do. As I mentioned, Gather.town, Kahoots lets you do kind of quick little survey kind of things. You can have like group chats on GroupMe, Mentimeter, word clouds, all of those kinds of things are like those surface gathering, connecting kinds of things. Hold on, I see something in the chat. Let me make sure. Can we get a copy of these slides? So absolutely, I'd be happy. It's on Prezi. I can send you the link. Let's see. Digging deeper. So these are things that are going to help you get a little bit deeper. So again, as Stephen mentioned, cooking meals together and sharing stories are really powerful. I've had folks share recipes, and then we gather things, and then we all try to cook the dish, and they share the history of this dish and what it means to share story and narrative. It can be really, really, really powerful. And again, it can also still work online right now. Of course, in person, it's a little different because you can share the meal together, but it's still, you just have to reframe it or reshape it. Sending and tending to plants, having something living in a space is really important. You can send people seeds, let things grow, and then bring them back together and plant a garden together. Who was our gardener? Was that Helen? I forget who our gardener was. Designing puzzle pieces for a larger piece, remembering that we're all part of the kingdom and we're all a piece. And so sending them pieces of white puzzles and letting them decorate their pieces, and then bringing it back together when you're in person and putting it up somewhere. Again, what piece are you can bring about so much dialogue, right? Like, what is your piece? How did you bring your plant? So I'm also thinking about the reflection that comes from these activities. Doing a book club, of course, a song club, any of those kinds of things, showing movies, but then doing an after discussion. That's really important. Again, the Lectio Divina Plus, which I did, self-portraiture. Now this one is very, very vulnerable. It's essentially allowing people to draw themselves in whatever form. They can do Legos, whatever it looks like, but then re-inviting them to draw themselves in the eyes of the divine and seeing what might shift or change. And you'd be really surprised at how much we tend to be hard on ourselves about things, about who we are. But then when we see ourselves in the eyes of the divine, how do we hold on to that image? How do we hold on to that with ourselves and give ourselves grace? So it's really, really powerful. Mirroring is very much of a drama term, right? So it's like you have someone here, you do the same thing that person does, you give them a word, racism, and then you have to do it. And then you talk about kind of how that felt bodily, like, oh, I didn't know that that's how you felt about that. It helps you dig deeper and get to know people. Paint parties, a lot of folks are doing things where you can send canvases and paint, or you collect them and you guys can paint together, especially online. Again, red light, green light, you can do race, you can do obstacle courses, you put things in the way, you got to blow bubbles, all those kinds of things. Pictures, have people take pictures, send them in, or, what picture are you thinking of today? Why? Nature, labyrinth is really good. Go outside and find something in nature that speaks to you today. Why? What is it? Collaborative playlists, Spotify, that kind of thing. So these are just a couple. And then if you wanted to go somewhere after those things, here are a couple other places I just wanted you to know about. Kind of Stuart Brown, some other places if you're a Brene Brown fan, if you want something more academic, Brian Edgar or Courtney Gocho. Okay, let me stop sharing my screen and then I will make sure I put the link. But feel free, yes, I know we have a very limited time, I apologize. Yes, feel free, take your stuff off, let's talk. I see some things in the chat, something about Mentimeter.
Oh, Deborah and I had an opportunity to sort of jump in and use it in a large presentation. And my response was, this is really cool and I'm totally overwhelmed. And it was not, so it's like, it's really cool, but it's helpful to practice using it.
Yeah, you might want to use all the tools in advance, like practice them first, which is why.
Yeah, let the people practice with them first too.
Yeah, give a trial run. Like even with like red light, green light, sometimes people need to remember. So you just do a little trial run, and then you're like, oh, everybody's good, we're good. Okay, now let's do the thing. Yeah, because people need time to get adjusted. That's fair. Anything else? Sorry, I'm gonna pull up this link so I can put it in here.
Erica raised her hand.
Yes, Erica, please.
Well, I wanted to share a story, but I don't want to dominate the time because I really want to hear from Lakisha. But I'll try to be quick. So just about the importance of dance and how powerful that can be. Sometime, I guess it was in the fall in September, I lead a group of pastors who are early career and talking about becoming public theologians and how they get more active. And we've been meeting monthly on Zoom. But in my personal life, my uncle had fallen ill with coronavirus, and I mean, it was not looking like it was going to be okay. And I was just kind of in knots about it. The night before our meeting, I just had to go walking. So I started walking and listening to music, and it sort of opened up this new, it just opened me up. But the next morning, we were going to get on at 9:30. At 7:45, my cousin called and said, hey, we're having this Zoom with my dad. He's probably going to die any moment. All got on, and I I played the sort of the chaplain role for my family of like leading songs and prayers. And he actually passed away while we were on that call. And I had this group to like an hour and a half later. My supervisor gave me an out, but it's really literally the most fun part of my work. So I wanted to do it anyway. But what I did, and I always lead the opening meditation, but what I did was like, everybody shut off your video. We're going to have a dance break. And I put on the song that I had listened to on my walk before, and I'll have to think of what it is, but because it's such a good song. But it's like, it was the only way I could be there. But I think a lot of us were feeling a lot of stress, and just, I don't know, dance does something. So I just wanted to share that personal story. I had never told anybody that. So.
Well, thank you for sharing. This was a place to share it. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I dance too. So when I'm like, yes, it's about moving the body. Just, it just releases things. We store so much, and I'm there with you. Thank you for that. Thank you. I know we only have a couple of minutes left. Anyone else have any questions, thoughts? Yeah, I mean.
I spend a fair amount of time in Zooms with a group of people with developmental or intellectual disabilities. And so this is sort of if any of you are connected to such groups, having a conversation doesn't always work for such people. But play does work, dance works, singing works. And so I just want to share that. It's one thing to think about adding play to people who are sort of in Zoom as part of their daily work lives, and this is how we socialize now because of COVID, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's then an adjunct. Play becomes a livening adjunct to our, oppressive daily Zoom lives. But for people who are stuck in care homes, can't even go to their day programs yet, who are can't go to church, can't go to anything, but also can't do the kinds of conversation I can do with my college buds, right? Invite them to play.
Yes, just drop the mic. And I'm like, even just the multiple intelligences, there are folks that just understand in different ways, right? Again, we want to talk about access. We want to talk about, being differently abled in multitudes of ways. I have a nephew that's on the spectrum, and play works amazing. Like that's how I learned so much about him, is when we were drawing elephants. I didn't even know he liked elephants. And I'm like, oh, well, why? Oh, because they're big, powerful. I want to be powerful. Like I want to be, right? Like, again, he didn't necessarily communicate it in that exact way, but like having that conversation was really powerful, and it only came through play. It only came through there. And so just realizing that there are so many ways to reach people. And that's why I think knowing our context, realizing expression, how we can do it, and play can just be just so powerful. And I just don't like when it gets the short end, like, oh yeah, that's just play. No. It is play, and it is powerful and amazing. And I just wish we could infuse it in everything and get everyone to see the importance and the value that play can add to it, literally any space. Any space. I feel like it should just be part of the ethos. And I think it would just, by leaps and bounds, whether it's education, theology, church, corporate world, I mean, anything, you name it, play will make it better. Sorry. So that's my last 2 cents.
Well, play certainly does make it better. And thank you for sharing so energetically with us this afternoon. Are there any closing questions or comments that you want to ask now or put in the chat? We will get slides. The video will be up. And some affirmations.
Yeah, thank you right back.
So I would invite, as we, in closing, unless, Lakisha, do you have a closing plan?
Usually, I just usually like to take a couple deep breaths, because I'm already exhausted by this time. But no, I just like to breathe deeply. And then let our breath be our blessing, because sometimes that's just enough. If that's okay. Is that okay?
Yeah, that is.
All right.
the
So
breath would be our blessing. And then I would invite, thank you for coming. Spread the word. We will be sending out information soon as we have them scheduled. We have at least 2 more webinars that we will have between now and June or July, and then we'll take a little hiatus and work on our fall programming. So keep your eyes open through your e-newsletters that you get from Alum and or through REA. But I would invite us to show our thanks and appreciation to Lakisha through whatever sort of playful or ritual gesture, to thank her and to thank Stephen to be as our technical person. And I'm going to a round of applause.
thank y'all.
Oh,
Well, that makes my day. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here, and go find some time to play every day.
Yes. And breathe. Your breath is your blessing today. Thank you. Have a good one. Thank you all.
Sonia, hope to see you again.